Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Dan Banchero Show. Today we're going to be talking about resentments. I'm your host, Dan Banchero, coming to you live from San Mateo today. You know, resentments have dominated my life for many, many years, and over the years I came over some literature that changed my mind and helped me get through these issues. This week I'm going to be talking about some selections from the 4 Agreements from the great Don Miguel Ruiz. Many of you maybe heard of that book. And one of the best books I've ever read, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by the great Dr. Wayne Dyer, based on the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching by the great Lao Tzu from thousands of years ago. So, resentments. You know, sometimes I get so upset with circumstances or others' behavior that I can't concentrate and I'm not a successful human being. And I can't get through the day. I forget to do things that I need to take care of. I obsess. I can't understand why things are the way they are, why rules are in place, why people would do things the way they do, and I go absolutely bonkers. I assume a lot of things that people should be doing that make sense to me, but I forget that what's logical to me may not be logical to somebody else. So that is a form of selfishness, and I've ruined my life many, many times over and made things harder on myself many, many times over as a result of this type of thinking. So, first, the 79th verse of the Tao Te Ching on page 374. It says, after a bitter quarrel, some resentment remains. What can one do about it? Being content with what you have is always best in the end. Someone must risk returning injury with kindness, or hostility will never turn to goodwill. So the wise always give without expecting gratitude. One with true virtue always seeks a way to give. One who lacks true virtue always seeks a way to get. To the giver comes the fullness of life. To the taker, just an empty hand. All right, so the title of the essay based on that passage by Lao Tzu, on page 375, it's called Living with Resentment, or Living Without Resentment, I should say. And Dr. Dyer states that resentments don't come from the conduct of the other party in an altercation. No, they survive and thrive because you're unwilling to end that altercation with an offering of kindness, love, and authentic forgiveness. Lao Tzu says, someone must risk returning injury with kindness, or hostility will never turn to goodwill. Dr. Dyer adds, there is a time for hostility and a time for peace. As the storm of a quarrel subsides, you must find a way to disregard your ego's need to be right. It's time to extend kindness by letting go of your anger. So, last night, you know, I'm working at this restaurant and it's kind of picking up, and they got 4 tables going, and some lady orders a glass of Pinot Noir. We're out of the Pinot Noir. And so I tell my manager, can you take this off the bill? We're 86'd it. So rather than her saying, okay, no problem, she goes into this whole thing. Well, did you look at the whiteboard when you got to work? I said, well, I did look at the whiteboard, but I must not have seen it. She said, well, you should always look at the whiteboard. So here I am waiting around for her just to take the wine off of the bill so I can go on about my business and get a new wine for this customer who's been waiting. But she'd rather talk about the whiteboard. So I'm sitting here in my mind, going along with it and saying, yeah, you're probably right, you know, but there was some sticky pads that were, you know, blocking the full board, so that's probably why I passed it. So my mistake right there was I'm continuing the conversation, knowing full well that I've been in these situations before. I don't want to go back and forth about the whiteboard. I should have just said okay. So finally, I get out of this situation, and I start obsessing over it, and I'm distracted. I'm going into this whole thing about how, you know, well, maybe if you would go into the computer and just take it out of the system, we wouldn't have to have this conversation. You and the other 3 managers who are on salary. Because every other place I've worked at, they go into the computer and they take it out if it's 86. That way we don't have to waste time. Or, how about you quit putting all these post-it notes all over the board that nobody reads anyway, blocking the board, so I could see what's 86th. So I'm sitting here taking her inventory, doing appraisal of her behavior and what's wrong. And in the meantime, I'm not being an effective employee. I'm not being an effective server for the person paying the money to have their meal. And essentially, I'm justifying my anger and my resentments. So I need to realize that this person only knows what they know. They don't, they haven't had the consequences I have. At least I don't think they have. Maybe they're not there yet. I can't live like that. I like to be a happy-go-lucky, smooth-sailing guy, but I have to change my character in order to do that. So I must apply forgiveness in this type of situation. Otherwise, I'll continue to have days like this, and hence ruining my the rest of my week. So I also don't like the way certain coworkers speak to me. This has been going on for years. I have to turn around by, addressing them by the first name, making eye contact, asking how I can help them, smiling in their presence, even if they are hostile. You see, I'm going to practice teaching people how I want to be treated. So if I don't like the way people are treating me, I have to set an example of how I want to be treated by treating them with some type of kindness or respect, no matter what the circumstances are. And it's not always easy, believe me, I know. There's some people who are really, really going to push us. So in the past weekend, I went to Arizona, and it was my daughter's birthday, and I was informed that I have the same bad sense of humor, I have the same bad manners, I'm still childish, I'm still narcissistic, yada, yada, yada. So I do recognize a change in me, because in the old days, taking these words from somebody, I would have gone around to the bar, snuck around the corner, had a couple pops, came back, would have been a little bit loose with my tongue, used a lot of profanity, vulgar, and some other vile things that I would have said in that situation. So the change is that I'm no longer doing that today, because I have a greater awareness of what resentment's going to do to me. So I have to keep this in mind, that I don't want to play this game of who's right and appraise others. Now, I don't always do it, because sometimes I do get some relief when I'm by myself and I entertain myself with some of my sick thoughts. But as long as I'm not acting out on those thoughts and making things worse, I don't have to worry about it, because I will cause more havoc in my own life, because I will have guilt, shame, remorse, all these things of the consequences of what I say and do. So I don't want to do that. These things will lead to me being all kinds of, bad things. If I'm driving on the road, and I used to drive Cadillacs, many of you guys know. I had about 4 or 5 Cadillacs in my heyday, and I drove around 55 miles an hour on the freeway, 25, 30 on El Camino, cruising around the mean streets of Millbrae. And so even after I got my Mustang a few years ago and other cars, I still drive pretty slow. I don't get too many tickets. And so some people lay on the horn and they'll cut me off, and the past 6 months to a year, I've really been on the road a lot with my sales job, and there's a lot of hostile people with the traffic, in the Silicon Valley here, and all this construction going on. It's a long day on the road, no matter what kind of job you got or wherever you're going. So people will flip me off, they'll cut me off, they'll blow their horn really loudly, and I would return the favor. I'd give them the old "go bang yourself" finger, like they do out in Greece. I'd give them the bird back. I'd yell at them. I'd swear at them and their family members. I'd use some very profane statements, like I mentioned earlier, at these people that I don't know. And it's a crazy world. I don't know who these people are. So now, in the last, I'd say 2-3 weeks, I've had to change that, and I smile, and even if it is a sarcastic smile, it's still better than being angry. Because if I'm in control of my smile, that means I'm in control of my mind. And another thing I do is I'll toot back a couple pumps on the horn in a friendly way, just kind of let them know, I hear you, I know you're pushing me. But I don't flip them off, I don't shout back, and I give them the right of way. And I just have to look at, I don't want to live like that, because I know where it leads me. That type of thinking, those types of reactions, I can't act like that anymore, if I want to be at peace, and if I want to be free of resentment. Then there's gossip. Oh man, gossip has been a huge thing for 20 years. To every little rumor, there's a little bit of truth. So I'd hear what other people would be saying about me. People would come back and tell me, oh, this guy's saying this, or this chick's saying that. And whether it was true or not, regardless, if they were gossiping out of concern, or if they were trying to defame me, I'd in turn do the same thing. So rather than making peace or just forgive them or going to them and tactfully communicating with them that I know that they've been talking about me, I'd return the favor, like I said, and then hence I'd be no better than what they are. So I'm choosing to connect with that type of energy and that type of behavior. It makes me a hypocrite, and I'd stay in the resentment. So then I'd be mad at myself, I'd be mad at them, I'd go have consequences through my other reactions to life, and things would get worse. So there's a difference between passively accepting a situation and being a codependent and a pushover. So there's a fine line for that for me, and I've had to read a lot and learn about these things, so and identify with them and realize what kind of consequences I have down the road if I continue to allow these things to happen. So if I don't want others to gossip about me in a negative way that is not out of concern, then I've got to be really careful about what I'm saying about others. Is that a concern? Am I mocking them? And I do it, and I'm able to identify those things, and now I have a greater awareness of where my thoughts are at and how full of it I am if I'm going to sit here and get angry with people gossiping about me. That means I'm also concerned about my reputation. And I think I mentioned this in my last segment. If I'm concerned about my reputation, I'm really concerned about what others think. And the only way to change my reputation is through changing my character directly. All right, so that's a great verse in the Tao Te Ching by the great Dr. Wayne Dyer. He goes into a bunch of essays in that book. There's 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching. It's a bunch of ancient Chinese proverbs. I definitely recommend the book. It's great. I'm going to get into that a little bit more in upcoming episodes of this Dan Banchero show here. But next I want to get into the 4 Agreements by the great Don Miguel Ruiz. Many of you who've been to jail or other corrective facilities or programs might have read this book. I actually got this as a gift from my daughter's grandmother. It's about 10 years ago, and man, what a great read. It's simple, it's short and to the point, very positive. I would get it on audiobook if you like to cruise around in your car, listen to it on CD. A lot of good stuff. I know many of you have already read it, but for me, I like to reinforce good ideas and good readings because it just keeps my mind right. So I want to give props to the great Don Miguel Ruiz here for writing this book. He starts off in the first agreement about being impeccable with your word on page 27. He says, through the word, you express your creative power. It is through the word that you manifest everything. Regardless of what language you speak, your intent manifests through the word. What you dream, what you feel, and what you really are will all be manifested through the word. The word is not just a sound or a written symbol. The word is a force. It is the power you have to express and communicate, to think, and thereby to create the events in your life. You can speak. What other animal on the planet can speak? The word is the most powerful tool you have as a human. It is the tool of magic. But like a sword with 2 edges, your word can create the most beautiful dream, or your word can destroy everything around you. I've learned over the years that most of the time, I get what I am, not what I want. So that goes back to exactly what I was saying about the gossip thing. What's my intent with what I'm saying? So like some people will call this the law of attraction. Some people will call it the secret. Some people call it the golden rule, karma, whatever you want to call it. I'm unable to get into the mind of another human being. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what they're seeing or perceiving. But I can control my character. It's not my job to push my beliefs on anyone. I mean, I hear people talk about politics and investing and all this other stuff that I really don't care for anymore. And all I can do is conduct myself and share my experience of my life. I really don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and nor do I care to express what I believe anymore. I used to get all caught up and I get all wound up, and it wouldn't take me into a good place of peace. I get into resentment because then I want people to agree with me, or I get pissed off when they would disagree with me and they insult me, or it really didn't work out. So if I want to be treated kindly, I need to make sure that I'm treating others with kindness also, kind of like what I was saying earlier. It starts with my thoughts of others, and then it carries out and ends with how I act and how I speak of others. So that's a good passage there. A lot of it, I was listening to a talk. They were talking about the difference between observation, what we see, cold facts, and evaluation, what we think is going on, what we're evaluating. So what we see and what we believe are two completely different things. Observation is we're witnessing something live, and evaluation is what we think is going on. And that can be very, very detrimental. I know it has to me for many, many, many years. So, second agreement, don't take things personally. So on page 50, Don Miguel Ruiz says, you take it personally because you agree with whatever was said. As soon as you agree, the poison goes through you and you are trapped in the dream of hell. What causes you to be trapped is what we can call personal importance, selfishness. Personal importance, or taking things personally, is the maximum expression of selfishness because we make the assumption that everything is about me. Dan Banchero. Oh. During the period of our education, our domestication, we learn to take everything personally. We think we are responsible for everything. Me, always me. Nothing other people do is because of you. It's because of themselves. All people live in their own dream, in their own mind. They are in a completely different world from the one we live in. When we take something personally, we make the assumption that they know what is in our world, and we try to impose our world on their world. Oh, look out. So I see people every day, whether it's on TV, hear them on the radio, at work, in daily conversation. People are looking for opportunities to be offended. And if you don't come across somebody or engage with others that are doing this, all you gotta do is turn on the cable news. Turn on the mainstream news for about 1 hour, and you'll see people just looking for things to be offended about. It's unbelievable the world we're in. So in the third agreement on page 63, he says, don't make assumptions. We make an assumption, we misunderstand, and we take it personally, and we end up creating a whole big drama for nothing. All the sadness and drama you have lived in your life was rooted in making assumptions and taking things personally. Take a moment to consider the truth of this statement. The whole world of control between humans is about making assumptions and taking things personally. Our whole dream is of hell based on that. We create a lot of emotional poison just by making assumptions and taking it personally, because we usually start gossiping about our assumptions. Remember, gossiping is the way we communicate to each other in the dream of hell and transfer poison to one another. Because we are afraid to ask for clarification, we make assumptions and believe we are right about the assumptions. Then we defend our assumptions and try to make someone else wrong. Man, I'm telling you, for years what I thought was logical, because I just set a clear boundary of what my needs or wants are, I'd assume that somebody, whether there was a girlfriend, a coworker, a friend, or just people in daily life, you know, be mindful of others. But everybody's in their own world. People were brought up differently. They've had different experiences that might have caused them to think these things. And I know I was so oblivious to how the world is. I'd be like, what is wrong with these people? And then I go out and I get hammered over it. And then I'd make a whole disaster out of everything. I'd ruin people's workday. I'd ruin people's personal lives. Oh man, what a mess. So I got to be very, very careful when I'm assuming that people know what I expect out of the world. So instead of that, once again, I got to lead by example, and I need to teach people how I would like to be treated based on how I conduct myself and how I treat others. Again, it goes right back to me conducting my character in a goodwill manner. On page 64, Ruiz also says, making assumptions in our relationships is really asking for problems. We often make the assumption that our partners know what we think and that we don't have to say what we want. We assume they're going to know what we want because they know us all too well. If they don't do what we assume they should do, we feel so hurt and say, you should have known. You know, I mean, when you live with people and stuff, we all make these assumptions. So I don't want to hold any more grudges towards others. I can't make assumptions. I got to conduct myself in a manner of living how I want to be treated. If I want kindness, if I want responsibility in my life, I got to be these traits, and I will attract those things. Anyway, it's been great talking to all of you. If you're in a relationship and you're feeling pain, I've been there. I hope you got something out of today's episode. If you liked what you heard today, share it on the internet, share the link, play it over, and I hope you all have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday. God bless.